Up a day. It's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam podcast. The podcast where we look at all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. Like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, IG, and Substack. My podcasts drop the beginning of each week. Also, look for my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News, first and third Fridays of every month. All right, my guest for today's podcast is the 10th elected Lieutenant Governor of Guam, serving alongside Governor Leon Guerrero since January 7th, 2019. He has played a critical role in advancing public policy, innovation, and inclusive economic development across the entire island. He was born and raised in Guam and earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science from the University of Guam. A lifelong public servant, he has served in all three branches of the government of Guam, including leadership roles in the legislature, judiciary, and the office of the governor. In addition to his government work, he has experience in the private sector, particularly in construction and telecommunications, and has served on multiple boards. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to welcome a true leader and public servant, the Honorable Josh Tenorio, Lieutenant Governor of Guam. Sir, how
Half
are
a
you
day.
doing today? Half a
I'm
day and all of that good stuff.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, half a day. I was going to make a joke that we'll have a good podcast. For those that can see it, it's because we go to the same barber.
Yes, we got the clean look going.
Yeah. But
Well,
thanks
sir,
for
we're
giving me
happy to
this
have you here.
opportunity. Yeah.
We're happy to have you here. We're excited about the opportunity to have a discussion. Now, we have a tradition here on the podcast where we start off with some icebreaker questions just to kind of get a sense of where your head is at in terms of innovation. So, I kind of want to understand what's your definition of innovation and what does innovation mean to you?
Innovation is an opportunity for individuals or organization to evolve in their thinking and processes. It's an environment where people or employees or teammates are free to problem solve and have the support to try new things. And innovation also means a constant improvement program, meaning that you're constantly keeping tabs of the effectiveness of what you're doing and informing your operations about that. So for me, innovation means that you're not stagnant and you're conscious that the environment or the operating factors that are before you are going to change and evolve, and you have to be able to manage that change and be open to refining the things that you do in whatever you're doing that, and in this case, in the professional setting.
Standing, and I really loved you throwing in the continuous aspect of that. I love that from a Six Sigma black belt standpoint. So I really love that aspect of it. All right, what is your favorite innovation or piece of technology of the last couple of decades?
Oh gosh, I think the smartphone, right? I mean, I remember
Yes,
I remember 20 years ago, the BlackBerry was all the rage, right? You were able to access your email. Maybe you could research some things, mostly entertainment, because there wasn't necessarily a vast amount of content yet that was online.
right.
But I thought that was innovative at the time. But smartphones, you used to be able to, or you used to think that when you're traveling or having to, go on business trips, that, you were going to be at a disadvantage if you didn't bring your laptop. In this case, sometimes you might not even need it because all of the different applications that are available for you, including signing documents and having those verified in order for you to not lose time on things. I think that's the biggest innovation in these last few years. Now, let me just pause and say, it seems to me that the biggest innovation now is going to be AI, and things are happening in that area so rapidly that I'll admit, for me, I feel that I'm behind in trying to understand where things are going. It's already, you can't resist. You need to know in order to survive.
Absolutely. I will tell you that it's amazing the supercomputing capability that we hold in our hands. Who would have thought it would have gotten to this place? And it's just going to continue to exponentially increase and grow in capability. And I think you're right on about AI. I mean, that's what I'm doing right now with my business model. I'm reshaping my entire business and technology consulting model around applying AI to the client service delivery model, in addition to old school just consulting and coming in and providing recommendations. I see that I need to be able to leave something more tangible in terms of maybe bots that automate processes for folks, or different other things that can be there as value add to the client. So absolutely.
I
So,
think
sir,
let me just say
I've
that I
heard you.
think, okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that I see there's a lot of possibilities and excitement when it comes to aggregating data with AI, because the reality is that a lot of performance measures that are out there, there's a lot of data that's collected, and I'm not so certain that it's so easily accessible for us to come up with recognizing what the trends are all the time.
Yes.
And so I think that that's one place, and in a business or in the government, allowing you to go back and analyze who your customer is and what they really need, or where delays are. I think this is probably where I see for me, I'm excited about, AI and in that space. Now, I'm also grew up in the 80s, so I watched Terminator, and I'm also kind of scared about this thing. So,
Rise of the machines.
yeah.
Yes. So, sir, I've heard you speak a lot of times before, and I know we share a similar vision of Guam as a potential 21st century tech and innovation hub. Can you share with us your specific vision of what a future Guam looks like, and what kind of key steps do we need to do between now and then to get to that future Guam?
I think access to broadband infrastructure and technology to utilize around the island, I think, is a key area that would enable us to embrace Guam's role as a leader in this area. And Guam's role, in many ways, is kind of determined by geography. And even though a lot of things can happen, uh, you know, without geographic distinction. But the reality is that geography still plays a role. And I'll give you an example.
Yes,
When you go into analyzing why data centers are being built, and recognizing that data centers play a role in the speed and access to
yes,
information. It plays a pivotal role in your ability to be able to operate software systems, or to empower yourself to the security front with data security. But also, there's a geopolitical reality that we face, and because we're under the U.S. law, this is an advantage again, also because when you're looking at places to operate things or maintain facilities, having the protection of the U.S. legal system is also another strength. So that's why I feel that Guam has a place in a leadership role, and it's been predetermined by our geography, but it's also been predetermined by the history and heritage that we come from. Having some of that is just the reality of how long we've had uh, civilization and settlement on this island, versus elsewhere in the Pacific. Some of it has to do with, our experience with a violent occupation by a violent enemy. Some of it has to do with the economic opportunity and the establishment of Guam as a telecommunications and transportation hub. So all of those are all strengths that and opportunities that most people from an isolated island with this small size and population base wouldn't normally have an access to. So, the other reality is that we are a major center. Many people know this, but a lot of people don't. We are a major a center for, high-speed fiber in the world. This
Yes.
is a reality also that is based on our geography. So, where I think when I talk about, so on one side, we have all this fiber coming through the island, connecting other places, but we also have an issue of we need the fiber or the connection we have internally on the island isn't where we want it to be in order for us to take advantage of the opportunities that we can establish here by embracing our role as an innovation and technology hub. Now, it's a couple things. I know that you might want to, you will touch on this, but in order to be a innovation and technology hub, you have to have reliable infrastructure. Number one,
Right.
you have to have infrastructure in educating and maintaining a population that has technical skills in order
Correct.
to operate. You have to have reliable power infrastructure that is going to be as resilient as possible given the geographic features of where we are in the world and
Right.
those threats. And you also have to have the legal infrastructure. So, and in that case, we're the strongest because we are under US law and we have a very reliable and we have a very dependable legal structure here that gives investors and give businesses the comfort level that they're going to operate in a place that is fair and that there are legal protections and legal remedies whenever there are conflicts or disputes. Right? That's another win for us compared to other places in the Pacific. So I think those are the ingredients and I feel that there's a lot of work. I feel like we're still in the developmental phase on the workforce side. We have some tools, but we also have to align our systems because there's an urgency. I would feel in terms of capturing opportunities. And then, of course, we know that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done with the infrastructure resilience we need in order to have a safe operating place for innovation and technology.
Absolutely. I really love the way that you talk about Guam's inheritance of geography. I mean, just for geography alone, it positions us really well from three aspects. You talked about them. One, kind of the data backbone or infrastructure of all of this fiber that's being laid and the data center nodes that are being established here on Guam. Two, the geography of um, basically being between America and Asia and what that means for commercial trade, economics, etc. And then third, being the big one, the geostrategic military aspects of that, that also allows us to capitalize on being a logistics and sustainment hub in the future, supporting those forces. So we have an inheritance just from our geography that if we leverage it correctly, man, we can turn Guam into, just a real benchmark, global benchmark that others look at.
And
So excited to hear that.
and saying that also, a lot of people, there's always going to be needs for improvements, and there's serious needs for improvements around town on the island. But we should also recognize, I mean, gosh, there's a impressive amount of work that has been done that we're utilizing as our foundation. I mean, people don't forget, we with all the conveniences and how connected we are to technology and popular culture and all these things, it's easy to forget that we're still in a very isolated part of the world. P.S. Our backyard or our back pond is the deepest place in the entire world, right? So I think, we have to stop. Sometimes we have to stop beating ourselves up when we're trying to, when we need to be able to pursue our ambition in a very good cadence and pace. But, I mean, we're not starting off in a disaster either, right? I mean, if you go to islands around this region in particular, or for that matter, if you go to islands around the world, you'll recognize that there's a whole bunch of, we have a lot of strengths here that make it, which kind of makes it achievable for us to be an innovation and technology hub.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, sir, let's talk about some of the workforce development strategies or initiatives that we need or that are already in work that's going to help prepare our people for this transformation into that tech and innovation hub of the future.
I think that one area that I see, so let me look at the business case of Guam Community College, where I feel Guam Community College and their rapid deployment of programs to address gaps in the economy are kind of showing some great credibility, right? So Dr. Okada and with great integrated support from the Guam Department of Labor, they set up these hooks for the underskilled and underemployed portions of the population, right? So having boot camps that kind of hook people in to get a good foundation so they can get into ship repair jobs is a very good example of that. Or, responding to the need for healthcare workers and having boot camps that eventually feed into, a licensed, certified nurse assistant, then licensed practical nurse, to try and address things. Those are all kind of like the good recipes, but not entirely what's needed, right? So that's a good example of how we can roll out things. Where I feel that we need to make the improvements, and it has to do with expanding the workforce and also the recipe, I think, for a longer term success. We have to go younger, and it has to be, I
Yes.
think, in the high schools and in the middle schools. And I think
Yes.
some of the good models that we see in with our East Asian or European friends is there's a lot more integration of things happening from the middle school side, right? Even starting that young, and then recognizing that in high school, understanding the skill sets and the interests of our students and rapidly matching them up to career paths and education learning paths. So I see nationally, we're in this transition where, aside from the political discourse and I guess, how out of favor universities have now become versus tech schools and career tracks, right? The reality is that on Guam, we have to be able to train and recruit younger employees to get into the workforce. And on the innovation and technology front, I think that one of the things that that has been lost by not having a full-time vocational high school, which is, and I went to Guam Community College Vocational High School.
Yes,
You have, and that being said, I went to university also, right? You have
right.
options. But because GCC's programs, and I know they're good programs operating in the high schools, they're good. But the reality is, when you have a campus where the focus is vocational education, and there is a career pathway, by the time I was a senior in high school, I had my first job, and it wasn't an internship or a part-time job. I was working as an accounting clerk at Mariana's Electronics and Computers, right? I mean,
Outstanding.
this is kind of like, so I recognize that in the high schools, there can be more refining on that track. I have classmates that they were doing HVAC back then, and they're making a lot of money. They're business owners, you know. So I think that that's one part on the educational front. And the other part of it is, we have a lot of people living in poverty here. So when we're
Mm,
able to um, win on providing affordable broadband access, and giving kids the technology to be able to support their learning and their interests, then I think that's also kind of breaking into those barriers that are
yes.
locking up a portion of the workforce. We need to get employment up, and we have a lot of people that, even though our unemployment level is down, which is a very positive thing, there's still more people that are not in the workforce that could be in the workforce. And although we're talking about innovation and technology here, the amount of people that their lives are being lost to, generational substance abuse and poverty, that still is part of the solution, right? You still need to try and fund effective programs to get people out of that and get them into these training programs and get them into the workforce. That it's connected. So I think it's the education and training part for sure that I see we can make more progress on, getting a workforce enabled to join. And right, the other part of it is, the reality is we don't have enough technical people to operate data centers, right? Or to be able to get into the technology space that is calling out to us, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think that there's a lot of more work at this is where the having academia, government, and private sector being able to interchange and shape and create systems is where we can go. And we see some of that success already with some of the boot camp approaches, but we can expand it into other areas.
Absolutely. So that's a great segue into kind of, what specific technologies and capabilities should Guam be investing in right now to be more competitive and resilient. One of the things that I've seen is it becomes like a chicken or egg kind of situation. People get paralyzed and stuck in a catch 22. Well, I don't want to heavily invest in a particular area until I have a bird in the hand, if you will, that says this is why I'm investing in it. But if you never invest in it, you really can't attract the companies and the organizations and stuff that you need from off island to come in and to set up shop, invest, etc. So you're kind of caught between the two. So what specific technologies or capabilities should Guam be investing in right now?
Well, I think that some of there's two things on my mind. Number one, with all of the expanded military activity here, there is a need for folks to be able to operate new systems, right? So, of course, there is a need and a role on the service industry side anyway. But remember that when you're looking at the world of military contracting and all of the performance outcomes that are required, right, for time and the spend, the project managers, and there's no reason why we don't have local people that are going to be operating these contracts at all levels of it, right? So
Yes.
right now we do see a whole bunch of people coming in taking jobs because there is no alternative. And it costs money for people to be displaced from their place and give housing allowance or being having to pay for all these hotel rooms for extended periods of time. And this applies
Yes.
to so many different disciplines in that world, right? So I
Yes.
think that understanding kind of what those jobs are, and we have good ways to connect that, there we can understand the long-term trajectory. Even though military construction will reach a peak and then go down, we have permanent operations that are going to require it. If we're going to be integrated missile defense site, there are high-tech jobs that are required to in the civilian side to support military authorities, right?
Right.
Even with additional manpower, there's, you're going to have base operating contracts. And
Yes.
if you're going to be able to perform even the most basic engineering functions to support, housing, people need to be able to understand that project management side, right? So there's going to be a lifting up the younger people or reskilling people. That's one way. There's already an automatic growth, permanent growth, or long-term growth outlook we have on the military side. But on the government side, utilizing technology and doing modernization is the other part. I mean, I think we're proud that we did a whole bunch of work, but to me, it's kind of like we're just scratching the surface. Like we put a whole bunch of things online at Rev and Tax to make it easier for the customer, but still, I would say my objective opinion is we're still on developmental side. There is still more work to be done because there's still manual processes being done in the basic things that we do in government, even in law enforcement. I mean, I like to be able to be in a place where crime data and police reports are aggregated so that they're informing officers on the street where they should spend their time on patrol more, I mean, rather than, I mean, I think you use your instincts and your responsibility, but if you know that, there's this one area in town that has a higher rate of burglaries and robberies, then you obviously know you have to have a bigger presence there, right?
New York City and other places have done that very successfully using integration of technology.
And I think that when I think we're going to be able to pull that off real soon because of the opportunity that we're getting with the broadband money that all the states and territories got. And so we're going to be able to see areas that are going to have reliable connection and overcome one of the realities. I think you and I don't know if you were shocked. I was shocked during Typhoon Mawar that we had a communications failure. And for me to be shocked as a leader in government, what it meant was this unregulated industry. We were relying solely on their effectiveness. And of course, don't get me wrong, telecom, we have a good competitive. But I think, if you look at the ads prior to that, I mean, and my trust level is very high, you would think that we wouldn't have the communications failures. But we have to remember we're living in an isolated place, right? Where
Right.
things there in Typhoon Pongsonghua in 2002, we only had 13 cell sites that needed fuel to operate generators to maintain the network. Everything
Hmm.
went digital. We got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of areas that require power. So, when you're thinking about that, now, burying the fiber, and having that resilience is one part of it. And then, I kind of mentioned earlier, having reliable power, getting things underlined, being able to recover real fast. These are all things that are to be necessary for us to be that innovation and technology hub, be a smart island, right? I mean,
Right.
and we kind of beat ourselves up. The amount of money that we need to spend for reliable power infrastructure is greater than a county in the CONUS does, right? Because you can get into power purchasing agreements with high-performing
Correct.
providers in neighboring counties and states. Here, we're relying on ourselves, right? And so the
Yes.
cost to put things underground, and it's on the backs of the ratepayers, and our ratepayer base is relatively small compared to all the big demands that we have, right, with mass tourism and military. So, but I mean, finding good ways to take advantage of the federal attention that we have because of the geopolitical role we have, and taking advantage of GPA's good reputation with the military to get federal authorities to help pay for these resilience measures so that we're not saddled with that. Those are all part of the what's needed. And you really, I think, you have to be in the big picture to understand all these different lines that are needed.
Right, right. So let me throw a specific capability out at you. So obviously back in the late 90s, Guam used to have a ship repair facility that was BRACT. Um, Not only did Guam lose a huge technical and very capable workforce when that happened, but also um, the Navy lost a key logistics capability that they've been kind of bouncing around many times to foreign locations to try to get that maintenance taken care of. Um, do you see that as an area that we really need to kind of get a unified effort to build back up that technical workforce so that we can advertise to Indo-BACOM that, hey, you should use us again as this maintenance hub for your ships and submarines, particularly given what the governor's already initiated with the Navy with Gamma, the additive manufacturing initiative. It seems like it all kind of dovetails into one thing. And we've talked before about DoD's new regional sustainment framework as another push toward creating this hub and building industrial capability out where it's needed.
So I think so. The answer is yes. That we should be in this space, and I think that we have a lot of credibility in this area. Number one, as you pointed out, local people staffed and operated a ship repair facility here. And they had an excellent recruitment program, that had an excellent apprenticeship program that resulted in a large number of skilled workforce that were local, that created the middle class of Guam at that time. And because of the changes in priorities for national defense at that time, and other decisions, it got closed, and we lost a big portion of the population from that. People got
Yes.
relocated to other ship repair facilities in the continental United States. And of course, at that time also, there was a whole bunch of privatization that occurred as well. Now, so number one, can we do it? Of course we can, because we did it at a different time with lesser resources and a lesser population. So I would say that we already know that we can prove based on our history that we can do that. The second thing is, um, we also experienced this pandemic we experienced showed the United States how very vulnerable they were to operating in places that were not under their flag. There's been a lot of there was a lot of ship repair work being done in Singapore, as an example. And guess what?
Correct.
Not only did Singapore close, they closed their port, U.S. and the companies that were doing the work were not able to receive the work. There had to be emergency work done here and elsewhere. But it shows that even in the worst of times, when there is when the country needs a very reliable operating area, when you're operating in a foreign country, that there's no longer that assurance. This is where being in the American family plays a big role, and it's again another a reason why that there's a great business case to have it here. The third thing is, there's a reality. I love Hawaii, but boy, they are even more expensive than anywhere else. So, they have impressive facilities at Pearl Harbor shipyard, and we shouldn't think that we need to ramp up at that level because the volume is not there. But we understand and we can project what kind of vessels are going to be operating here and what kind of work can be done that can be scaled up. And already we see some great success with both Cabers Marine Corporation and Guam Shipyard that are able to be utilized for certain kind of work, but with an expanded workforce and operating area, and with the geopolitical realities, there is yet again another business case to be able to step that up. So I would say that both the governor and I have been talking with Indo-PACOM and various leadership in DoD and the Navy about making decisions to come into play here, right? I mean, military has to do certain things too, right? They have real estate that needs to be upgraded. They have a whole bunch of wharf space inside Naval Station that hasn't been upgraded in decades and decades. So they need to reconcile that. But on the other side of it, Gov Guam and the private sector also have properties that are in close proximity that if decisions are made, we will be able to go out there and get private partners and do the investment and able to ramp up faster than maybe they can. So there's different ways. And I think that this is where working in unison with the private sector, understanding where our capabilities are, and kind of what the path is, those are all would play a role. The fact that GCC and Dr. Mary Okada created and purchased a building that focuses on ship repair and getting students identified already is kind of a reference point and our illustration to higher authorities that we're committed in pursuing that.
Yes, absolutely. I think that, as you said, there are a lot of great opportunities for public-private partnerships between DoD, Government of Guam, and industry in order to provide a more efficient and effective ship repair capability that would serve everybody's interests in a strong way. It's just a matter of making a strong case for that because I fear that we're going down that same road that DoD is starting to look at foreign locations, push this industrial capability forward to instead of American soil here in Guam. And like you rightly pointed out during the pandemic, Singapore, the LCSs had to come here to get their maintenance work done. And even in some of the ports of Guam, excuse me, ports of Japan, some of that maintenance work had to come here to
Right,
Guam to work.
right.
So why don't we learn the lessons learned from the past and kind of go forward and equip Guam to be that location to provide that sustainment capability.
And Robert, one thing is, I mean, uh, we also take advantage of the political realities, right? President Trump and in his America First policy is calling on U.S. Shipbuilding to not only occur but dramatically expand. Right now, the reality is that building those things up, it doesn't happen overnight. But if that's the policy of that DoD should be following, then that's in line with why that business case of having additional work being done here in Guam and assigning real estate for it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes so one concrete opportunity coming in is Navy is going to build a new submarine pier so that they could service the submarines that are not only stationed here but are operating in the region, right? And those are
Yes.
my favorite example of this business case is, we have a young engineering student that went up and upskilled himself in nuclear engineering, and you're a 25-year-old, you got offered a six-figure salary plus housing allowance to come back to your home island so you can participate in that. The problem is, Pearl Harbor shipyard is operating in Guam, right? We have a Guam branch. We have to be the Guam shipyard, but we can make that business case. But when
But
decision
that,
makers are able to make that, right? That's when we can align what our goals are at the Port Authority and the property that we have to be able to support the establishment and expansion of industry that is connected to creating high-paying local jobs.
absolutely, sir. And I just wanted to interject. That's a great example of what we're talking about. Yes, Pearl Harbor Shipyard has folks there, but it's my understanding they've been having difficulty keeping that staff because people would rather go back home to Hawaii. So they're having to pay top dollar. They're having lots of turnover. And then that eventually led to them outsourcing it on a contract to a company in the States who then have to do the same thing, top dollar to get people to come out to Guam, lots of turnover because they're going to probably stay for maybe a year or two, and then they're going to go back home, and then you're going to have to place them. It makes sense to be able to um, set it up so that you're max utilizing the um, workforce here on Guam. And if we could put um, language in those federal government contracts that incentivizes industry to do that under some kind of public-private partnership agreement, it would be wonderful. Yes, it might be a little bit more expensive up front, but over the life cycle of the contract, it will not only be cheaper, but it will be more effective. You'll get a better readiness outcome because you won't have as much turmoil and changeover of the workforce.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that part of this is convincing the Congress, right? Because I
Yes.
think that people might be, or they shouldn't be surprised that already in Indo-PACOM and in the Navy, there is some advocacy and support for people that really understand it, right? Getting on the ground and understanding what happens here, it really kind of further supports the business case. And of course, our history having a shipyard before validates that this thing can happen, right? I think
Right.
the other part of it is I think in the Congress, right, and making sure that when we have a agenda and that we utilize all the leadership and the private sector to kind of let the congressional authorities understand that this is a smart business case for the United States. I think that's part of,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. This is a win-win for everybody to be able to do that. So, sir, let's talk about how we can create better partnerships between government, academia, and private industry to enable this transformation and innovation we're talking about.
we're going to have an opportunity, I think, soon to be able to maybe make and support advances. Well, before I say that, let me just, I think that we have a very effective Armed Services Committee at the Chamber, but I think the Armed Forces Committee, they need to also innovate. They need to see that, I think that the paradigm has shifted, right? No longer are we advertising, hey, Guam is a great operating space. Come, I think people know that what kind of services and what kind of industry can be supported, right? And I think that's one of the roles they play because, to be honest with you, congressional leaders and folks in DoD love it when people in private industry are coming out there and are articulating things that and are enthusiastic about things that are in line with the operational mission and what the needs are, right? In the national, at least in this national defense front. So I think that business side, I think is good, but I think that there needs to be a bit more outreach with the rest. So that's part of it. I think white papers coming in from the chamber are very valuable. And I think that on the policy side, there's probably room for more unison with the government to be even stronger in the case. Second thing is I've seen both the university and the college, the community college, and the Department of Education have a tremendous amount of attention and interaction with various offices and missions within DoD. Then I've never seen that before. And I think
Mm,
that we need to be able to sort of integrate and understand who's talking to who. Because Robert, I'm sure you've heard this. There's a whole DoD is a big organization to begin with.
huge.
And, it's not uncommon for multiple services or multiple offices to be assuming partnerships or having a vision for partners, including in education. And then, we only have so many people to pursue these partnerships. And on top of that, we need to understand, how many of these are just developmental, how many are realistic, right? And so I think on the education front, I think we can do more in kind of mapping the interaction of the interests and trying to decipher ourselves where the efforts can be placed to enable the partnerships. And really, to me, the partnerships enable dollars, right? So School of
Yes.
Engineering at the University of Guam, in my book, if we get it right, they should be getting a whole bunch of contributions coming in from DoD because it's piped into establishing a workforce that is necessary, right? But they
Yes.
also need to upskill it because not everything is a military need. We have growth outside the base in other sectors of the economy that also need to step up, that do need the same kind of expertise. So I think on the education front, there can be a bit more integration and mapping and understanding all the different elements that are at play, including the natural demands and how we want to expand the economy. And by the way, Robert also has to integrate with, our first girlfriend in this relationship has been with tourism, and we got to make sure that those facilities are also positively impacted
Yes.
with what we're talking about. And I think the third thing is that I think that having nonprofits or think tanks or air or organizations that can manage government, academia, and business and be able to kind of have that free reign to be that. To me, it's kind of like having a ideas information exchange space that everybody sees a value in and everybody benefits from and is used to kind of align the different lines of effort that are needed. I think that's kind of like the future, and I think maybe a lot of even in government, everybody, we're doing our thing. We think we're doing the best thing, but if we just pause and figure out the different lines of effort and at the very least be aware of all the different lines of effort, it really informs our strategy, and I think it makes it more effective. And I think that's kind of the space that I see. I think we're going to have an opportunity to kind of get some alignment soon. We talked about this before in September. We're going to have defense forum here that is going to be able to kind of inform people about what's happening on Guam, what the outlook is, and then how we all play different roles in not only the responsibilities that we have, but the realities that we have. And let me just say that, we're living in a free, well, I think we're still living in a free democracy. I know we are, but democracy is not very perfect these days, right? But the point is that there are a lot of valid opinions about things like with militarization and socioeconomic impacts that can happen. But, there's realities, right? And
Yes.
you need to, I don't think the question is, we don't want this, but things are happening, right? Because there's missions and instructions and authorities that are empowered and have the authority to get things done. We need to understand what those are and figure out how we can improve the quality of life for the people of Guam as a result of this reality. And Robert, the geography, I opened this by talking about geography has been an advantage. Geographies are a burden also. We weren't invaded by the Japanese in World War II because we were just another island to get under control. We were invaded because of our geography and the ability for that enemy to utilize Guam as a place to advance their interests and their acquisition, their war plans, right? That's a burden that we have on our shoulders. The U.S. military designating Guam as a necessary logistics hub to project power is based on our natural features of our island. The fact that we have the only one of the very few deep water harbors that
Yes.
can receive vessels is one thing. The fact that we have an island that is large enough to be able to maintain hundreds of aircraft at one time is another geographic feature of the island that is also a burden. So it's a burden on geography. And so the way I see it is, these are realities. And as a leader of the island, you have to recognize that this is what's happening and figure out how you can improve opportunities for your people and try and get people to be able to establish a very good standard of living and be here at home on the island rather than having to, face the challenge of leaving elsewhere because, you're not able to provide a standard of living for your family, right? These are opportunities. You have to change. You have to understand what these realities are and make the best of it because it's going to happen. And I think that's one thing that in the discussion, when we're talking about political discussion and the role of military, by the way, this is not the largest number of service members we've ever had on the island. People, if you go back into the history, I mean, gosh, after World War II, I mean, the local population was eclipsed by the large volume of service members that were here. So, this is part of kind of like how Guam has been. And it's always helpful to look into our past to understand how we can shape that future that we have.
Outstanding. So, for the final thoughts, sir, as we look ahead, what are your hopes for Guam's innovation ecosystem over the next 10 to 20 years from now? and what role would you like to play in helping build, manage, or oversee Guam's innovation ecosystem?
For me, the innovation ecosystem is going to be filled with people that were educated here in Guam that may have returned from abroad because they were able to find high-tech, high-paying jobs that they couldn't find before. So they're able to live on the island. That is going to and I think the resonant impact I want to see on the Innovation and Technology Hub is that there's significant improvements in the delivery of healthcare on the island, in the delivery of public infrastructure on the island, and that there's going to be a great opportunity for a big portion of the island to get out of poverty and to be able to be productive citizens, homeowners, and folks that are operating in a place that children are going to be able to really pursue livelihoods that are going to make them happy, and
Yes.
proud to live here.
Wow, thank you for your awesome insights, sir. This was a really great conversation. I would love to keep you here for hours just talking. There's so many different topics in terms of innovation and transformation. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be a guest here on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
For my audience, I hope you learned something today. Please watch for my podcast dropping weekly at the beginning of the week. Follow me on all social media platforms, including now on Substack. And again, engage with the content. It helps the algorithm and it gets this content out in front of more people so we can get this message out. And please don't forget to read my Innovate column at guampdn.com, first and third Fridays of each month. I'll see you next time. And remember, no matter whether you're at work, at home, or play, always innovate. Thank you.